Compressors are incredibly complex processors, and for decades, engineers who know what they do behind the scenes have been utilizing the distinct behavior of different units to accomplish amazing sounds. So let's talk about why we use different compressors as we look into the nuances of what makes each compressor unique and cover the key elements of how compressors affect a signal's timbre. Starting off, let's talk about why compressors are incredibly complex. So compressors are best known for attenuating peaks. By doing so, we increase headroom. Subsequently, we can amplify the compressed signal without causing unwanted distortion from clipping. This post-compression amplification increases the level of quieter details that were previously masked by louder signals. So that's a simplified version of why we compress and what a compressor does. However, compressors also affect the frequency response through the introduction of harmonics and intermodulation distortion. They affect the ADSR, which can completely change a signal's timbre. They wave shape, meaning they can change a sine wave or any other wave type into a completely different shape, which is a big part of why they introduce harmonics. Now what's amazing is that each compressor type that you've come across does this differently. Even emulations of the same gear, but by different developers, do this differently. They introduce different harmonic orders or formations, their attack and release behave differently, all of which have a huge impact on the ADSR and the timbre. Additionally, modern compressors are introducing functions that drastically change the sound, like look ahead and hold. Furthermore, the attenuation itself may have unique nonlinearities or variations in the input to output ratio, contingent upon the frequency of the incoming signal and a slew of other variables. For example, how an STA tube leveler compressor attenuates 250 Hz will vary from how, say, an 1176 compressor attenuates 250 Hz, and no amount of tweaking or adjustment will cause their behavior to match. The same could be said regarding wave shaping and the subsequent harmonics. Even with similar amounts of attenuation, a 60 Hz wave compressed by a tube leveler has a distinct shape, while a 60 Hz wave compressed by an 1176 has a differing and also distinct shape. And this wave shaping isn't static. In other words, the wave shaping isn't occurring simultaneously to all peaks and troughs. As the signal is clamped down on by the compressor, the wave is affected differently at different points in time, even if the amount of attenuation is the same. This means that the harmonics occurring at 20 milliseconds will be different than the harmonics occurring at 40 milliseconds, which means the frequency response alterations caused by harmonics will be different at 20 milliseconds than at 40 milliseconds, and so on. And to be clear, the plugins that I've shown so far are very thoroughly designed to have this level of depth. Even plugins that I recommend to y'all as free alternatives, as awesome as they are, don't match their analog counterparts with the same attention to detail. For example, this 1176 emulation by Analog Obsession, an incredibly talented independent developer, introduces minimal wave shaping. The frequency of the incoming signal, the amount of incoming signal, and even the attack and release don't cause significant alterations to the actual shape of the peaks and the troughs. Real quick, if you want to get your mixes to sound like professional songs, we have a mixing membership called the Sage Audio Membership, where you get access to Sage Audio University for in-depth mixing and mastering courses, private one-on-one mentorship, unlimited personalized mixing feedback, and 50 free mastered songs per year. Go to sageaudio.com or use the link in the description. Now, I want to show you some practical uses for differing compressors so that we can explore how these seemingly esoteric behavioral differences all add up to something that we can use. So, an 1176 compressor on a snare is kind of a classic combination. But why is that? Well, the super short attack and release times of the compressor cause significant harmonic distortion, almost if not as much as a saturation plugin on moderate settings. So the most distortion seems to occur with a faster attack, set around 4.5, and the fastest release setting. Now, since these settings are faster than one complete oscillation to any frequency below 150 Hz, give or take, this distortion becomes more pronounced as the compressed frequency becomes lower. We can also observe that the lower the frequency, the more prevalent the wave shaping. Practically speaking, if the snare's fundamental is within this range, then harmonics will form in the low mids, resulting in what's often referred to as a warm or a full sound. Additionally, this compressor has an expansion effect on the transient by reducing the sustain and release. At least for this emulation, if the attack is around 4.5 and the release is around 6.5, the initial 10 milliseconds of the transient will be significantly higher in amplitude than what comes after. This is particularly true right around the frequencies where we get the crisp and bright sound of the snare drum. Furthermore, the phase rotation of the transient, in which the positive value is amplified more than the negative, will cause subsequent processors to read the incoming signal as higher in level, meaning their effects will become more aggressive. Lastly, we have the simplified reason why we use compressors. Since I've attenuated the peaks, I can now use post-compression makeup gain to increase quieter details. So let's listen to a snare processed with these settings, and then I'll do my best to match the behavior of this compressor with another one. Now, even after tweaking and looking behind the scenes to find all of the right values, note that the timbres don't match, as they behave uniquely when compressing. Now, I barely scratched the surface of the unique qualities of various compressors. However, I hope this video was informative and that you know a bit more about compressors, how we can take advantage of their quirks to create unique sounds, and that there's a lot going on behind the scenes. As I mentioned earlier, if you want to get your mixes to sound like professional songs, we have a mixing membership called the Sage Audio Membership, where you get access to Sage Audio University for in-depth mixing and mastering courses, private one-on-one mentorship, unlimited personalized mixing feedback, and 50 free mastered songs per year. Go to sageaudio.com or use the link in the description.